So you finally took the deep dive and now you want to get those good old retro achievements for Streets of Rage 2. And as you find yourself looking through the list of achievements, you stumble across a few and think to yourself,
well, gee, I'm not quite sure these ones are very possible to get or are very easy to come by.
well, I'm here to show you exactly what you need to do to get these achievements unlocked. So before we get into the meat and potatoes on how to kind of traverse through the whole game on hardest, what I wanted to tell you guys is that just by beating the game on hardest without using a continue, you're automatically going to hit that 800,000 point threshold. So you'll get the full value of 100 points right off rip. If you're not quite up to beating it on hardest, you can technically get this on the hard difficulty. So for these examples in today's video, we're going to be going through it with me using Axel because that is typically who I main whenever I do go through playing Streets of Rage 2. Alright, so let's talk about some points real quick. So to start off with, you get 20 points per punch, 30 points for each kick, 200 points for a throw or a slam, 150 points if you hit the blitz attack in full, 30 points for a jump kick, 40 points for the jumping knees attack, and then for a straight jump kick, you either get 30 points if you just hit one of the kicks, or if both hit, it's 90 points in total. 60 points for a headbutt. For grabbing and doing the knee attack, it's 30 points for each knee. Your defensive special is 50 points, and then your offensive special is 400 points if it hits in full. So just as a quick strategy, what I try to do from the scoring standpoint, because I know we got to do a little math here to make sure we hit that 800,000, right? So what I like to do is just a quick jab, grab them, knee them, depending on how big their health bar is, maybe knee them twice and then throw them, because typically like the Galzias, their health bar isn't too terribly big. So typically I'll be able to do lethal damage. If not, I'll be really close. And that's the good thing about the throws and slams, is that if you have them and they have just that little sliver of health left, you can throw them or slam them and get that 200 points. And then the one thing to keep in mind too is that beating it on hard, you're going to get a 20,000 point bonus, versus if you're beating it on hardest, you get a 30,000 point bonus. Then outside of just trying to strategize on fighting the enemies, there's something that if you did not already know, without having to go through and watch an entire walkthrough, I'm going to go through very briefly on where all of the secret one-ups or hidden one-ups, whatever you would like to call them, are in each level of the game. So right when you get to the stage 1 start screen, the stage loads up, you just go down to that bottom left corner where that mailbox is at and just hit B, and that's where your first hidden one-up is located. And then in stage 2, the second hidden one-up is once you get out of the truck, you go all the way to the top left corner and hit B, and then that'll be your second hidden one-up. Then your third and your last hidden one-up is going to be in stage 3. Well, in the center of the screen, directly below where that thing extends from the wall, you're going to go all the way down and then hit B, and then that will be where that hidden one-up is located. So one of the obvious strategies with playing with Axel is of course going to be using that lovely blitz attack that they say is called Grand Upper, but as I say, it's the da-da-da-da, because that's exactly what it sounds like. It doesn't sound like he says Grand Upper whatsoever, but nonetheless, his blitz attack, that is going to be our saving grace here. And it seems like we're going to be spamming the hell out of it, and we will when it comes to gang fights. But when we're trying to focus on our points, I would suggest, if you can, to do like what I was suggesting as far as doing a jab, grabbing them, knee them a couple times, throw them, or whatever else, and try to maximize your points that way instead of just spamming the blitz attack. So that way you're doing the damage while also gaining the points, whereas when you're doing the blitz attack, it does more damage than what a throw or slam would, and you're actually robbing yourself of that extra 50 points that you would be getting. But like any game, if you're trying to win, the purpose is to win. If you find yourself in a spot and you have to use it, well then of course, by all means use the blitz attack or use your offensive or defensive special attack. And speaking of the offensive special attack, you try to limit how often you use that as far as for a point standpoint. Yes, it is 400 points if you hit it in full, but it does so much damage that it's going to rob you of the points if that's what you're going for. So our next strategy when talking about beating the game without using a continue on hardest, you're going to do what we always talking about cheesing out the enemies. And what I mean by that is we're going to be timing out our punches to where you're going to be seeing the enemies just kind of shaking, and then you just periodically throw a punch. And the enemies that I typically do this with are Electra, the Big Bens, the Ninjas, and then sometimes possibly Jack, but you know, for the most part, I can kind of just take care of him. I'm not really going to cheese him out. I'll try to maximize my points with him. So another quick strategy when dealing with the bikers, I'll either use a blitz attack or I will use Axel's kick because it has longer reach than what his punch does, because his punch is actually shorter reach than what the biker's punch is. So more often than not, they'll end up punching you before you can punch them. So the next tip is going to be doing a drop kick for crowd control. So that way you can drop kick enemies that are in front of you and then hurry up and turn around and use the blitz attack or an offensive special attack for enemies that are behind you. So in addition to doing a drop kick for crowd control, use the enemies for crowd control. Grab one and then throw them behind you for those enemies that are trying to sneak up behind and just give you those little penny pinches, just nickel and diming you down on your life. And then another strategy is going to be trying to not trigger certain enemies to come attack you, so that way it's kind of a form of crowd control. So I'm using this example here of me just facing Barbin. I just kind of, inched my way in a little bit so that way I didn't activate the signals over there with the yellow jackets. They just kind of stood there the whole time that I was fighting him. And then once I did defeat him, they would just die automatically. So those are my tips on what I did to go about trying to unlock those achievements we were talking about today. If I did not answer any questions you might have on strategies, feel free to post them below and I'll give you an answer as soon as possible. Thanks again for watching, everybody, and I will see you in the next video.